Time Traveler's Regret. The room was small, dimly lit, and humming with a subtle, almost imperceptible vibration. It was the kind of place that could exist in any time, void of personality, suspended between past and future. The traveler, Dr. Elias Carter, sat alone, staring at the weathered notebook resting on the table before him. Its pages were filled with scribbles, equations, and diagrams that once felt like triumphs, but now read like the scribes of a doomed prophet. Elias had done it. He had cracked the enigma of time travel, a feat that countless physicists, dreamers, and charlatans before him had only dared to imagine. He'd built the Chronos Sphere, a sleek, glowing contraption that hummed with power, able to pierce the very fabric of time. It wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. It was a ticket to omnipotence. At first, his travels had been thrilling. He'd stood on the rolling plains of ancient Mesopotamia, watched the pyramids of Giza being constructed stone by stone, and witnessed the signing of the Declaration of Independence. He'd marveled at humanity's achievements and occasionally its failures. But the temptation of personal intervention had always loomed, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. The first regret came when he visited his childhood. Elias had grown up in a small, rundown house with a single mother who worked herself to the bone to provide for him. He remembered her warm smile, the way she hummed lullabies even when her hands were raw and calloused from scrubbing floors. He thought he could make her life easier. Just a small change, a better job opportunity, an unexpected windfall. He had slipped into their timeline, dressed as a stranger, and tipped off a kind neighbor about a job opening at a local school. His mother got the job, and for a brief moment, Elias felt like a hero. But when he returned to the present, his entire world had shifted. His mother had never needed to work nights as a cleaner, which meant she had been home more often. This gave Elias a sense of security but robbed him of his drive. He no longer pursued science with the same tenacity. The version of himself waiting in the present wasn't Dr. Elias Carter, the celebrated physicist and time traveler. He was Elias Carter, a mediocre teacher at a community college with an unremarkable life. The traveler spent weeks undoing his interference, resetting the timeline, but the damage lingered, haunting him like an echo he couldn't silence. The second regret was love. In his 30s, Elias had met a woman named Clara. She was brilliant, fiery, and everything he'd ever wanted. But their relationship had crumbled under the weight of his ambition. He'd buried himself in his work, neglecting her until she walked out of his life for good. With the Chronos Sphere, Elias thought he could fix things. He traveled back to the day they first met, ensuring he was kinder, more attentive, more present. For a while it worked. They married, lived in a charming little house, and built a life together. But as the years passed, Elias found himself restless. The Chronos Sphere called to him like a siren song. He began disappearing for days, weeks, sometimes months. Clara eventually discovered his secret. "You're not living, Elias," she had said, tears streaming down her face. "You're running." She left him again, this time forever. No matter how many times he rewound the clock, their love always unraveled. He realized that some things weren't meant to be rewritten. The final regret was catastrophe. Elias had promised himself he wouldn't meddle in history again. But the future, oh, the future, was a temptation too great to resist. He traveled centuries ahead, curious to see humanity's destiny. What he found was a world ravaged by war, climate collapse, and technological tyranny. Cities were desolate, the air thick with ash, and humanity had splintered into fractured tribes fighting for survival. Desperate to prevent this apocalypse, Elias returned to the present and began planting ideas, nudging events, and pushing for advancements he thought would save the world. But every change he made seemed to accelerate the descent. The world became a worse place with each intervention. He was playing God with no understanding of the divine plan. Now, as he sat in that dimly lit room, Elias knew the truth. Time wasn't a straight line to be bent at will. It was a fragile web, each thread connected to countless others. His meddling had only ever made things worse. The Chronos Sphere sat in the corner of the room, its once brilliant glow dimmed. Elias had resolved to destroy it, to end his journey through time, and accept the present for what it was. But even as his finger hovered over the self-destruct button, doubt crept in. What if he could try just one more time? What if this time he got it right? The hum of the Chronos Sphere grew louder, as if answering his thoughts. Elias closed his eyes, the weight of his regrets pressing down on him like an unrelenting tide. Time was a river, and he was its cursed navigator, forever chasing redemption, forever lost.